What up, watch peeps? It's that time of year when Seiko starts to announce all their new stuff. Anyone see that 28mm dress KX? Pretty cool. It's neat that they're making small automatics. I really wish they would have made the 36. That would have been sweet. But today's watch is from the new line of SSB Chronos. I unboxed this a couple weeks back, so let's take a closer look. I'm Pete, and we are chilling with watches. Wrist check. I am wearing another Seiko Solar Quartz today. Whoa, that was weird. The hands were aligned like that, huh? That was completely random. This is definitely one of my favorite Seiko releases of late. I love this thing. I love this little 38.5mm. I caught myself the other day asking the bros if I thought a 39mm watch was going to be too big. What has become of me? I love when I get a Seiko because you never know what box you're going to get. It's always like a crapshoot. What we have here is the SSB405, which seems to be in one of their standard new white Seiko boxes. And check that baby out. These dials are crazy. If you take a closer look here, they got kind of cut out vents in them, and there's some like linear texture on that 6 o'clock subdial area there. I guess that's all through that lowest section, but you got different finishing on the 3 and 9 o'clock subdials. Just pretty wild. So there's like 4 different colors of these. There's this green one on bracelet, there's black on a bracelet, then there's a gray and a powder blue that come on crazy striped colored Natos, which I don't like striped Natos, but the watches themselves do look pretty sweet. So all these guys are 41mm. Full retail on them is $285, but you should be able to get these for $200 or less. So let's zoom back in on that dial and handset real quick. So the hands, you have these kind of samurai sword hands for the hour minute. I activated the seconds hand there to get it out of the way. Pretty nice handset. They stand out really nice against this green background. I don't even find they get lost too much against those silver subdials. So they have like a darker silver sunray finished in the middle. The ones at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock we're talking about. And then more of a brushed kind of silver outline around the outside. And that lower section on the dial, as mentioned there, has almost that kind of striated texture to it, and again where the text is at 12 o'clock, but the index portion is where this thing gets really nuts. So it's got these kind of stepped indices that are polished on the top, and I think that's really just a printed part on the bottom half, but then you got these cutout vents in between. It's all kind of crazy and nuts, but I think it makes it really rather interesting. And of course you got your tachymeter scale around the outside. Crystal is just a flat Hardlex crystal with a little beveled edge there. Perfectly fine for this price point from Seiko. The bezel, we have kind of a fixed bezel. You'll see that high polished 45-degree chamfer around the outside, then it is brushed on the flat surface on the side. Adds for a really kind of neat look. I like the way the polish kind of plays with the crystal there. The case on this one is awesome. I really wish they would use this to make like an automatic sport watch. You kind of have these reasonably sized mid case, but it's this flat area on the edge. It's the lugs that is really cool on here. I love that thing. You've seen this on some of the older 70s Seikos, and they've kind of matched the end link to keep that flat plane there. I think it makes for a really nice look. Now, if you were to take the bracelet off, the in between the lugs is really crazy because it is curved in that middle section and flat there. Looks even cooler in my opinion. On the other side, you have these kind of angular crown guards that I think look real nice. You can see they're kind of chamfered down there, and they cover just the right amount of the crown to keep it protected, but still super easy to use. The pushers on this thing are nuts. You got this giant start-stop pusher up here at 2 o'clock, and then of course Mecha Quartz, you get that instant reset there with the 4 o'clock pusher. Everything seems to line up really well with the hands on this one too. If I didn't mention, it is just a push-pull crown, but it does have 100 meters of water resistance, so no real issue there for me. I don't know if I mentioned that is running seconds there at 6 o'clock as well. You got the 24-hour subdial at 3 o'clock. I know nobody likes those. And then your minutes over here at 9 o'clock, of course. Flipping it over to look at the Caseback, these do have a much more simple Caseback than we've seen from even like the Seiko 5 lineup. Now this is from the Seiko Essentials lineup, so it is kind of the really basic entry level, but you really just have your stamped serial number and a small little spec sheet down there at the bottom. Now the bracelet uses hollow end links, as you can see here, but they are female, which means that the bracelet will drape right away, which I always find preferable. I think it just makes for a better wear. The rest of the bracelet is kind of your standard 3-link, and of course it is not fully articulating. As we go into the clasp, it's just your standard Seiko press clasp. The outer cover is a simple 2-push button, almost square cover there, which is a lot like what was on the speed timer actually. But you'll see this folding mechanism extends further than that, so you kind of almost have to sit this off center under your wrist, but I didn't find any issue with it. You know, typical Seiko bracelet, nothing spectacular, but perfectly serviceable. No Timegrapher today, since this is a quartz watch, so we're just going to jump right into the dimensions. We are looking at a 41mm case. Now it's only 40 millimeters at this bezel, so chronographs tend to wear large because of all the pushers and stuff, but without those pushers it definitely would wear like a 40mm watch. It comes in at 48 millimeters on the lug to lug, 12.3 millimeters thick, which I think is great for a chronograph, or any watch really. And it has a 22 millimeter lugs. I do think they could have maybe got away with 20s, but this case, the way it has these big angled lugs, this 22 works out just fine. Almost all of those dimensions we just went through really fall right into the sweet spot for a lot of people, so I think this makes a package that really wears well. Going over the rest of the specs, as mentioned, flat hardlex crystal. It uses the 8T63 Mecha Quartz movement, which is the Seiko branded version of the VK movements that you see in a lot of micro brands. It has 100 meters of water resistance. And on this bracelet size for my 7¼ inch wrist, it came in at 142 grams. So again, a really nice weight on it as well. It is using Seiko Lume Bright, but it is only present on the hour, minute hand, and this little bit of indice above 12 o'clock, which we'll take a look at in just a bit. And here's what I'm talking about. All those sweet spot dimensions kind of add up to a really nice wear. You can see it here on my 7¼ inch wrist. I think it presents really well from the top down. I think it sits really close to the wrist. I love the shape of those lugs and the way they turn down. Yeah, just really comfortable. You know, most chronographs I find to be kind of bulky, cumbersome affairs, but this one is not bad at all, and it looks pretty good. All right, let's take a look at side by side some other watches. I really wish I had another chronograph to compare this to, but I do not. So we'll just take a look at it next to some Seiko divers. Here it is next to the Solar at 38.5 millimeters. It is obviously a much smaller watch, smaller dial opening. Well, you can see how that wears. Both of them pretty thin, but this thing is super thin and wears fantastic. Here's how it stacks up next to the Seiko SKX. And, you know, they almost, if it wasn't for that giant dive bezel, they'd almost look like they present pretty similar. I think this guy wears just a little smaller than a Seiko SKX. Going up to the Turtle, obviously we're getting into a much bulkier watch here. This thing is going to wear a lot larger with that big cushion case. And you'll see it start to get into a lot thicker, heavier watches as well. All right, let's take a look at that tiny bit of Lume Bright.
Keep the Lume.
There you go. That is about all we got as far as the Lume goes. Like I said, hour, minute hand, and that tiny pip there at 12 o'clock for orientation. Lume Bright's great Lume, but there's just not a lot of it going on here. So there you go, the Seiko SSB. I think these are an attractive, affordable offering from Seiko. Well sized with kind of neat, interesting dials, which is something I've been into lately. I can't wait to see what other new stuff they put out that it's going to have to be added to my Seiko wish list. But for now, sneaker check, wear my red suede Pooms, and that is it. I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, please like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.